It's all killer, no filler, the clip show. I gotta say, you know you made it big when you're launching a clip show. I just feel like a real talk show host here, so I want to thank everyone who brought me here. Thanks to the full all killer, no filler staff. Thanks to Declan, my editor. I gotta say, if you're thinking about building a podcast out there, just get an editor and they just make life so much easier. This is basically a compilation of Declan's takes quite often on the most interesting clips that have kind of happened on the D2C podcast. So I really hope you enjoy, and on with the show. This clip comes from Sansorium, the non-alcoholic beverage marketplace. We've got a clip from them on their best advice for beverage companies in the D2C space. I know we have a lot of listeners of the podcast, readers of the newsletter, who are actually beverage companies. I know we have, I've just ran into a fair amount of beverage companies, fair amount of non-alcoholic or de-alcoholized products. As someone who sees all these products and curates them, do you have any advice for people building products in the space for how to kind of stand out?
Oh my goodness. I mean, I take advice, or I take sort of my learnings from watching people buy alcohol. I've stood in liquor stores before and done tastings for our brands and watched customers walk into liquor stores quite blind. They'll just pick bottles off the shelves and they've never tried it before. They look at the label, they look at the price point, they look at what's kind of around it, and that's all they're going off of. Maybe they'll ask the person that works there if it's good, but that person hasn't tried it. So I'm so sorry, but half of your product is the branding, half of your product is the package, and a lot of people don't nail that. And they don't have their positioning right, and they don't have, language on a bottle is also so important. I know one of our brands, he ummed and awed for months about calling it a non-alcoholic product or an alcohol-free product. Like, he had to really think about positioning the freedom in alcohol-free or the non-alcoholic in the ease of understanding what that means. So sit with it, really test it with lots of different people, and spend the money on a good designer. Don't go cheap. Don't do it yourself if you don't have a background in design. You spend the money. That's really what will pay off in the long run.
Peter McCoppin, the leadership coach for Pilot House. I'm lucky enough to have a few sessions with him. We had a really deep and esoteric conversation about leveraging chaos in uncertain times. And that's exactly what this clip is about, the opportunity that we find in these chaotic times. Speaking of the uncertainty of 2023, I think it's on everybody's minds. Everyone appears to be. January is always a little sluggish, I feel like, as people are kind of get their plan for the year in gear. But there feels to be an extra sluggishness with a lot of apprehension about about the potential chaos ahead of us in 2023. Peter, what's your theory on chaos and how to sort of thrive in it in organizations like the ones in our audience?
So chaos and crisis, almost one of the same, always invite opportunity. An opportunity for each and every one of us to dig deep into our resourcefulness, to confront our fears, to test and temper our resilience and resolve, to adapt, and then to carve a brilliant new path forward to a brighter future. So there is only opportunity in this current situation. When we say that we're looking at things with fresh eyes, that's what crisis does, or chaos does. It compels us to take another look, to do things differently. Dr. David Bohm was the founder of the implicate theory of quantum physics. He said it's more important to think differently than the knowledge gained. So to take a different perspective, a different point of view, to challenge our habitual practice. When things are going smoothly, we're almost mindlessly moving forward. When we hit the wall, we have to really be very resourceful. And that's that resourcefulness that will get us to a new state of being. Then two, to push through our fear. I mean, what is fear? It's a projection from past experience into the future. False evidence appearing real. It's false. And then to test and temper our resilience and resolve. Are we going to stand strong? And how do we do that? Reaffirming our values, the core of who we are. Pilot House has grown exponentially, phenomenally in such a short period of time. How has the company done that? From the inside out. From character, from core values, from the essential part of the soul of the company. It has grown organically, progressively, systematically from that center. And then to adapt. I mean, the measure of the intelligence of any organization is based on two principles: the ability to assess, assimilate, and apply new knowledge, and the ability to adapt within strategic imperatives of speed and range are critical. So this is a golden opportunity, a golden opportunity. And we think of those people who we most admire. Those are the ones who have walked through the fire and have reinvented themselves with even more mindfulness, greater intention, and determination.
And then, even before this, it's all amazing stuff. And even before that, like you were speaking earlier to this idea of this, everyone feels like they're in a unique point in history. And with all that's happening, with the way the media is, with the way AI is taking over, it feels very much like we're in this, we're heading towards a singularity or some great cataclysm or some great rebirth or something. But you're sort of saying this is something that happens cyclically throughout time, to generations.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eric. We study history not to understand the past, but only to anticipate the future. So if we look back 90 years, we'll see a scenario which in so many ways is a mirror to where we are right now. What is that scenario? It is disruption, collapse, and renewal. Disruption, Henry Ford's invention of the assembly line. It changed industry forever. And then collapse followed there. What was that? That was the Great Depression. And what came after that? Roosevelt's New Deal. So here we have, yes, indeed, disruption, AI, SpaceX, Twitter, Facebook, name it, whatever, robotics, all kinds of things. Collapse, perhaps to an extent that we've never experienced before, because it seems to be on all fronts, financial, physical, whatever, the earth, whatever, all these kinds of things. So what's on the other side of this is equal and opposite unto it. Newton's first law: for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And I think the invitation, I was just thinking about this in anticipation of our call today, the invitation to us is to give people hope for the future. Why are we afraid? Why does fear emerge? Because we cannot see the future. We stand in awe of the darkness before us. We don't know what to expect. So how do we provide our clients and each other comfort from the current demise and depletion to future hope? Now that would be, if that's the quest, it's amazing what we can come up with. And the solution will not be rational, it'll be intuitive.
This clip comes to us from Pretty Boy Skincare, Kevin Niehoff and Ben Feys. These were two young guys that I hit it off with. This was one of the podcasts that we did recently with brands in an earlier stage that I just found really exciting, had a lot of energy, had a lot of vitality. This clip is all about how to get external validation on your product and then really how to show yourself in your brand's content. What have been the biggest growth hits and external validations, whether it comes to with sales, people endorsing you or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for us, and it kind of happened, we kind of had a big week. It was last week, man. Black Friday is really hitting hard right now. Obviously, we always reach out to your network, but I think some of the key factors for us is that we're doing this the right way. Like Ben said, there are people that have funding and some people are getting viral. At the end of the day, we do got to be more patient. This is, you're in it for a long haul. You shouldn't get into starting a business if you're overnight success. That doesn't always happen. But last week, I think some of the big validation points were launching on Revolve Beauty. They're a massive e-com site. They're very particular about the brands that they allow. They have a lot of quality women brands on there, and to be one of the few male-focused brands that get accepted on there, especially being a new company, was a huge validation for us to kind of showcase that, hey, we're going about this the right way. On top of that, too, you see like PR is like obviously pretty big. Everyone knows you can pay for PR, but we organically got shout out on GQ. That was a huge factor, I think, for us that, hey, people are starting to take notice that, this self-funded brand by two kids from Ohio really did their due diligence, really are building a brand that men are actually taking a liking to and actually are wanting to use.
And if I could bounce off that, Eric, just to add on to that, with the growth hacking, because he put it so well, but also one thing we've learned, and Kevin's really good at doing this. I mean, one, if you just look at him, it makes a little bit more sense anyways, but like the founders should be showing themselves, and people, like from a growth hack perspective, our CPAs were in the high 40s, high 30s, up until Kevin made these two really just awesome UGC ads. And it's just him. He doesn't even say he's the founder of the company, but it's just him talking about the product and showing some of his eczema and showing the impact it has. And so from a growth perspective, I mean, it's crazy. We were in the 30-40% month over month growth while we were still figuring everything out. And God, did it take a while for us to figure this stuff out. But once we started seeing what was working, then you do growth hack that. And now it's like all content that we're trying to develop is around that true UGC style, showcasing the benefits or showcasing the features, but then really highlighting the benefits, the confidence, the impact to you being able to go about your day. And so, these past 2 months, we've been growing at, it was 69% 2 months ago, 70% last month. We're really starting to find our stride. Those CPAs are going down. And that's what it really comes down to is you got to just test. We were very fortunate enough to get some high profile people, both in the athlete space and in the clinical dermatology space, talking about our product early. And so obviously social proof is the name of the game. Like I said, there's a deep yearning for trust and transparency and authenticity, and people can tell right away when that's not coming through. And so, I mean, to anyone going out and do this, don't be afraid to get on camera. Don't be afraid to just ask your friends to tell their actual opinion of what they're doing. I mean, people love that stuff. And you're wearing a TikTok hat. We're seeing what people can do on TikTok now. And so that I think has been kind of our growth hack, is just finding that thing that works. And I know it sounds about as obvious as possible. Once you find that thing that works, dedicate all your time to replicating that. That's what's getting us the sales. That's what's growing us.
This clip was from the mastermind that we held in Victoria, British Columbia with our headline speaker and friend of the show, Andrew Wilkinson, who I'm actually just going off to see this afternoon speak in Vancouver at the My First Million event that I'm super excited about. Andrew's just a natural interview. He's just filled with amazing wisdom. So definitely check out that whole interview if you haven't already. But this clip is all about how to hire the right person to take over your business, which I think is something a lot of owners don't always think about. But you always want to make yourself replaceable so that you can be more independent. You can do what you want. Here's Andrew's advice on how to do that exactly.
It's probably the number one thing I've talked to most people in this room with a bunch of founders is finding those really competent people who will kind of follow through on that vision. How's that been for you?
Well, I mean, speaking from experience, I know exactly what all you guys are going through, because I tried to get out of all my businesses over and over and over again, and it was really hard to find my first couple of CEOs, and then also to trust someone. Think about it, this is the baby that you birthed and raised, and now you're giving it to the step parent, and maybe they're going to abuse them, and it's really hard to trust. It's hard to trust the step parent and leave them to do their thing. So I certainly empathize with that. I've been out of day-to-day operations in all of our businesses for about 7 years or something like that. And I had a few really bad experiences. So I've hired people that are incompetent to run a company before, and they've driven the business into the ground, and that was terrible. And then I've also hired people that are just unethical. We had someone who was literally defrauding us and lying and doing all sorts of horrible stuff. And so after those experiences, I think most people, if there's one thing I hear from founders over and over again, it's, I tried that, it didn't work, I can't do it ever again. And I think it's like cooking. You're gonna burn your hand on the stove a couple times, and then eventually you're gonna learn to hold a cloth, right? You'll get better over time, and you just have to stick with it. The things that we generally look for, again, the most important filter is this person a piece of shit or not? And that's very important. And do I enjoy spending time with them? I also look at, am I in agreement with them? So when they look at my business and they give me their opinion, do I agree with their vision? And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that it doesn't matter what you say, you will never change their mind. So if a CEO candidate or executive or whoever it is comes to you and says, I think the obvious strategy is for us to spend $100,000 a month on PPC. You might go, well, we've tried it. I don't know if it's going to work or whatever. If you hire that person, they will do that. And if you don't let them, they'll resent you and they'll say, the reason I failed is because you didn't let me spend $100,000 on PPC. So now I try and think about it as, they're an elephant and I'm a rider on the elephant and they're going to go where they go. So it's really important that I like this elephant and I like where it's going to go, because I'm not going to be able to change where it goes. I might be able to kill the elephant and put it in a different one, but I don't want to have to do that. That's very sad. So that's really important. And then from there, I'm also looking for someone who's run a business that's roughly double the size. So if your business is doing $10 million of revenue, you want to find the person that's running either number one or number two at a brand that's double your size in a similar or adjacent industry. You want them to look at your business and go, I see where you're going. I've already walked this route, and here's all the pitfalls to avoid. Here's how we do it.
This clip comes to us from Jordan Gordon, the head of email and customer retention at Pilot House, from the podcast entitled Email Less and Earn More. And this speaks to this notion I'm hearing in the space quite a bit these days about how, and even just having an email list anymore is not just a sure thing. And when it comes to deliverability, when it comes to the amount that people are hammering their lists with promotions, quite often you'll find that you get diminishing returns. And so this podcast was about how to build an email list like you'd build a fire, one piece at a time. There's the technical side of mailing as well. And when you don't follow these, when you do go buckshot all the time, you do mail 12 to 15 emails per week to an average user, you end up with this sort of phenomenon where you can be like, you can deaden your list without maybe even realizing. You talk a little bit about a worst case scenario that you've seen where people have just actually are getting so little engagement from any of their lists that it just becomes inert.
Here's a very interesting, this is live. This happened to us this year. We had a client who came and was generally messaging 100,000 addresses. And then we rewarmed their system. And the first message was to 5,000 addresses. And they got as many clicks from the email to 5,000 addresses as they were getting to their deployments of 100,000 addresses, because they weren't in the inbox. So, this is a little folksy, but I think about growing an audience, right? Email, it's like building a nice fire. And at the center of this fire is a bed of embers. You need to have a nice warm bed of embers. If you ever built a bonfire, right? You need that nice bed of embers. And that bed of embers is your engaged audience, your core list, people who are clicking. They like what you've got, right? So you need to grow that. You need to grow their engagement, which specifically is click-through rate. You need to get that click-through rate from them up. When that bed of embers warms, the heat from the fire expands and you're able to reach more people. These people around the fire, that's the audience you want. And you want to have as big a reach as you can for them, so when you've got a bomb offer, the most possible people can see it.
What are your next steps with a list like that? With when you've got it down to the, their core ember again, and you know that there is this, and it looks great to Google when you send that list. What's the next move with someone who's maybe gone too far, didn't listen to your message of mercy, and is seeing a bit of a deadened list?
Yeah, you have to look when you want to build that bed of embers back up. You're going to take some smaller pieces of wood and put them in there. If you've built a large fire before and then screwed it up, shifting stuff around, so you have to go back and focus on that bed of embers. So we're going to feed them content they like, right? So if you can't send the exact same message over and over again. Every message can't be 20% off and then, a third reminder, even though you didn't read the last two, right? You can't just always do that. So we start saying things that they're interested in. And by the way, why not always say something your audience is interested in? People are on your list for three reasons. One, they like your product and they want updates, new releases. Two, they want deals, right? So of course you got to send some deals out. That's why they're on the list. And three, because they think the information that comes to them from your list is helping them become the better person they want to be, whether it's in shape or a better car mechanic, right? So realign the message and send to a much smaller group. Send that message to the small people who are still engaging, right? Get them engaging more so that you can reach more people. Right? So we go like this and work our way back out. But like I said, you would be surprised. Sometimes in that process, you actually are driving just as much traffic to your site because the other stuff wasn't even in the inbox. And this will be visible to you if you send half as many emails and your opt-out rate goes up. Because someone has to open the email to opt out. Right? So you weren't even in the inbox if you send less emails and your opt-out rate goes up.
Right now, you're probably looking at conversions in Facebook or Google Ads thinking, why doesn't the data line up with my actual sales? Why doesn't more spending bring more customers? What ads are even working? With Northbeam's first-party data and cutting-edge AI, you'll know what ads generated every dollar of revenue across all your channels, all in one platform. Frankly, the best marketers on earth use Northbeam. It's one of our favorite tools and the industry leader in marketing attribution. Visit northbeam.io to see why, and mention this podcast for a special deal only for D2C listeners.
This clip comes from one of my favorite recent interviews with the Oodie magnate, which is over $100 million company. Just absolutely amazing the scale he's driven that to, along with his other e-commerce business that he has that we talk about in that podcast. But this clip is all about why Oodie is the dream product and what it means to have true virality. Specifically with the Oodie, what would you say makes it a dream product in order to have scaled this high to nearly half a billion?
Yeah, I think the mass market appeal, people say niche down, but you're not going to get a business going that quickly if it is a really niche product. So it's mass market appeal. It's logistically very easy because it's one size fits all. It has a visual element where you can kind of put it over your knees. It solves a kind of a fun problem as well. I think one of the main things that a lot of people don't think about with these kind of products is the viral coefficient. So how many people are actually talking about the product. And virality can be misinterpreted as, this is viral on Instagram, they're posting photos on Instagram, but that's not where the real penetration is. It's like through iMessage. It's through people like Snapchatting each other. Like that's where the viral spreads. And there's also kind of the subtlety as well. A friend answers the door and they're wearing the Oodie. Those kind of things. So I think that there's a great book, How Things Catch On, and I think it's called Contagious, and it talks about visibility is one of the main things that creates virality as well, and the Oodie is just a very visible product. In Australia, that people are always walking down the street wearing them, going to Hungry Jack's and Burger King and whatnot. So plenty of virality there.
It's a lot of visual real estate. I remember it was one of my first podcasts. I was talking with Chris Mead from CrossNet, and he was just talking about how his main marketing method, or in the early days, was just having people playing the game. And people, if you see something that you don't know or you haven't seen before, and it's especially if it's interesting or loud or bright, you're that much more likely to comment, to ask where it came from, what's going on with that. And that's got to be a huge part of the success of the product, I think.
Definitely. I think it needs to be novel and it needs to be novel and visual to make these digital platforms absorb them through the video advertising as well. So I think that if it's commoditized and boring, it's probably not going to work, especially on Facebook.
Oh, great. We're featuring a clip from Jeff Shannon, co-founder of D2C as well as Pilot House. This was in our exploratory podcast on AI-powered marketing. Both Jeff and I are really diving into AI, both text and imagery right now for some of the projects we're working on, and it's a lot of fun. So here's a little clip of Jeff explaining how exactly Pilot House is using, and us personally are using AI to accelerate creative iteration. It just fits so well with the iterative model, with the performance marketing model, right? We harp on it on this podcast all the time. As an agency, you're always trying to iterate, improve on your winners, and when it comes to your creative, your landing pages, all these things, and AI is just built to iterate as much as you want.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Like in this day and age, marketing is less about the technical media buying aspects and much more about creative iteration and creative development. And it truly comes down to, they who can pump out the most creative and have the most interesting angles and identify which angles to go build on is going to win. And AI is just this amazing tool to allow us to do that 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times faster. The one kind of major takeaway from all of this is that everyone should just be getting their hands dirty and testing. There's literally new products launching every single day. Some are awesome, some are horrible, some are just a clone of something else. I mean, if you're not in there using Chat GPT on a daily basis and Midjourney and Dolly on a daily basis, I think you're severely missing out, and I think you're gonna miss the boat.
This clip is from friend of the show and friend of mine, Carly McFarland, C-Suite Preview. And this is something really interesting. I recently had the founder of Mentorpass reach out, Kenny. I really want to get him on the podcast because I know Mentorpass can be such an amazing hack for people in our audience, and Carly uses it religiously to meet cool people and build relationships from. So here's exactly how to use Mentorpass to build your network. I would say your other superpower is like networking. And I feel like really lucky to have like met you right at the start of your like networking journey, because I've already met like 20 people from this. Can you just talk a little bit about your journey into the networking world?
Absolutely. So I have definitely always been good at it. I went underground for the first like 4 years of the agency, literally just operating, like working crazy hours and just like head down. But I kind of poked my head up right before I published the book. Back in like July of 2022. So like very recently. And I used Mentorpass, which I cannot thank enough even for like where I am right now, because I got to talk to some really cool people. The first person I talked to was Nick Sharma, who obviously is a very good choice of a first person to talk to. Him, Eli Weiss, and a couple other people, and they all told me like get on Twitter immediately. And so I created my Twitter account, and I think you saw like my first post because I had their like backing kind of. I guess they helped me get on Twitter. I tagged them in my first post, and then they retweeted it. Like my book sales have only come from like 3 initial posts I did on Twitter back in August, and then a couple posts on LinkedIn back in August. And like they're still selling today because people keep posting it online and like showing with their book and things like that. And that was actually part of the ploy there, was to only have the physical version and not have the Kindle or like PDF, whatever. So anyway, back to networking though. So I think, I mean, I don't know that you can like teach people how to do this, but I just have to say, like, I never, except for those first couple of calls asking like Nick and Eli, like, what do you think of the book? I never ask anyone for anything. It's literally always, even the calls I book on Mentorpass, it could cost me like $300-$400 to talk to somebody. And in my little description of what our call is going to be about, I just say meeting cool people or something like that. And I've met so many great people that are like really big names within the D2C space that like some of them have even become friends. Like even like I'm going to see Nick Sharma next week in New York while I'm there. And like, that is so cool. A year ago, I would have felt like, oh my God, Nick Sharma. And now I'm like, oh yeah, we're going for smoothies. So it's like that kind of thing. Like these are all real people. And if you're not trying to sell them something, like just, I don't know, being myself and like actually making friends, like being very genuine about it is like the best way you can do it. I honestly, even from going agency side to brand side has changed things like so much. Now I get to go to your events, you know?
This clip comes to us from a recent All Killer No Filler episode with Nikita and Cam, where we talked about the creative trends from 2022 that absolutely dominated. We drilled in, and that's what this clip is about, is specifically on the kind of creator-generated content that's working best, or specifically green screen content. And we just really talked about the how video content has really taken over static. So have a listen. Nikita, speaking of UGC or creator-generated content, what's sort of working top of funnel right now for D2C brands?
We've seen a huge uptick, I would say, over the last 6 months to a year, and people really taking off with green screen content, like more so than we ever have. And I think a big thing has been that brands have become much more open to testing a little bit of what we call scrappier content. And it's just different videos that we can pump out quickly, but they are super authentic and they connect with people and they just look, like I said, authentic and organic. So when people are scrolling, it doesn't look like an ad, which is kind of our main goal. And so that's something we've really seen take off lately.
Green screen creative. I actually wasn't thinking about that when you were talking about CGC or creator generated content. So you're speaking specifically about people that are showing the product as a screenshot in their background or showing other things as in their background?
Exactly. And it's a super easy way for people to visualize something with them while still seeing a creator talk. So it gives that extra little bit of dynamic aspects to it. And it's, like I said, super easy for brands to put together, super easy for creators to put together. And it's been something that we've seen work, and it can be photos in the background, it can be videos in the background. You can really curate it to be exactly what you need.
And because it's what people are used to seeing in their feed so much, it has that native appeal that kind of bypasses a few of those ad detectors.
Totally does, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that is the biggest trend of last year is just generally an uptick in video content in everyone's ad account based off of the changes in how people are actually using and consuming content on these apps. I mean, I don't think I've ever not opened my Instagram app over the last 6 months where within the first probably 10 seconds of using it, I hop over into Reels because everyone is just using it to consume video content. So we've seen the exact same effect in terms of how the ratio has changed. And it's not the same for every ad account, but the majority of them, you're seeing some ad accounts that are being filled up with video content, north of like 50, 60, 70% versus in a decrease in image-based content. It's different for every brand, but I think people want to see content that doesn't feel and look like an ad. So, creator content has been super effective for making people not feel like they're being advertised to and being entertained.
For our last clip, we go with one of our most recent podcasts. I hope you had a chance to check it out because it's just absolutely filled with wisdom from Sean McGinnis from Kuru Footwear. This was a C-Suite preview podcast we did where we talked a little bit about an article he wrote for us recently about all the steps he took to essentially incrementally double Kuru's conversion rate and essentially save the business. So this clip articulates some of the biggest changes that he made to both his traffic flow as well as to his website and overall customer experience to double his conversion rate. Hope you like it. SEO is something that our audience is always interested in. And of course, they're always interested in doubling their CRO, their conversion rate. So what were some of these things that you embarked on that worked the best for moving the needle on Kuru's conversion rate?
Yeah, it's not really sexy. Like this is not, advanced CRO stuff. I'm famous around here for saying like e-commerce doesn't have to be hard. Why try to make it hard or complicated? There's certainly advanced levels that go well beyond what we did, but the 4 or 5 things that we did were pretty foundational. I mean, when I got here, the font was a pretty light gray on a white background. The contrast wasn't the best. It was pretty hard to read. So I instructed the team to move it to black. That moved the needle. One day I was looking at it on the phone. I was like, boy, it's kind of hard to read. And I was like, well, our customers are supposed to be pretty old too. Hey, team, let's increase the font size by like 4 full font points. Lo and behold, conversion rate goes up, right? Like these were pretty basic things. The other one we did, at the time, our catalog was pretty small, and we were taking this approach on our collection pages where we'd show you one variant of the shoe and 3 or 4 different color swatches under that. So the collection page looked, first of all, really small. It made you look smaller than we were from a revenue perspective. And we went back to showing all of the main color variants on the collection page. And in my mind, the theory was, if we keep things the way they are and we show one color variant with a swatch, you might have to click 2 or 3 more times to actually see that shoe in that color. So first of all, there's the swatch is like, is that blue? Is it black? Like, what is it? You click on that style, then you got to go hunt and peck and find the right color variant. So it's at least 2 clicks to see a full size image of that shoe in that color. Our catalog's not that big. Let's show the whole thing. Let's show all 5 variants from a color perspective on the collection page. And by doing that, again, conversion rate went up. And having the same thing on PDP, rather than having a little swatch, we put the full, smaller, a miniature version of the full size shoe in that color as the selectable color variant. Again, conversion rate went up. So just kind of thinking about how big the collection was and trying to focus on the elimination of clicks has served us quite well. The last thing that we did was, we've always had free shipping, free returns, and free exchanges, and that messaging was kind of on the homepage, and it was on the PDP as well, kind of buried a little bit down, kind of where the rest of the value proposition was. And I said, hey guys, let's just test a free shipping bar. Let's make it persistent. Put it at the very top. We made it black, all caps in white letters, free shipping, free exchanges, every order, continental US or whatever it was. Conversion rate went up another 20%. So all those things combined, basically, when you look at the direct channel traffic of the year before and in the 2019 and then in 2021, we had a 95% increase in conversion rate.
Thanks for listening to the D2C first ever clip show. Feels like a real milestone for me personally for this show. Next, I'll be filming a training montage. That's really another big bucket list item for me. So stick around for that. And until then, I'm off to Vancouver to go meet the My First Million guys. So I'll do a little report on how that went on a future episode. But until then, hope to see you guys at C-Suite, where if you like this clip show, that's basically what these masterminds are. You get all killer, no filler, all the best people, all the best mentors, all in one room for 2 days. We're top golfing. Like, why wouldn't you want to be there? Go to directtoconsumer.co/events and grab a last minute ticket. You still have a month to make the decision. Stay at the Sahara. It's close. It's easy. Come down to Las Vegas and we'll see you at C-Suite.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you're not getting the D2C newsletter, you can subscribe for free at directtoconsumer.co. And if you want to learn more about Pilot House's all-killer, no-filler services, take off to pilothouse.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.